If you're a local sports fan, there's a specific player or team that resides above the rest in your memories. For most fans, there's a player on their local professional team that they are able to see or meet in person that forever sticks in their mind as their favorite player. Sometimes, it's because they were amazing players statistically, or maybe they had a grit and toughness unlike anyone else, or maybe they just were a great example of kindness to their fans and community. The player we're examining today showed off all of these characteristics throughout his long and storied hockey career. A man highly revered in Detroit, not just for bringing success back to the Red Wings organization, but for the impact that he made for them going forward. Today's legend is none other than NHL Hall of Famer Steve Yzerman.
Welcome to Walking with Legends, the podcast dedicated to telling the stories behind the most iconic athletes and teams in sports history and what made them become a legend.
Sometimes when you tell the stories behind a sports team, it can feel like it's straight out of a plot of a Hollywood film. Someone experiences success, then a bunch of things happen to where they fall from grace, then something happens to bring them back to success again, and then the movie ends with, and they all lived happily ever after. This may be cheesy, but this is essentially what happened to the Detroit Red Wings. In the 1950s, the team had experienced incredible success, using the talent from the likes of Gordie Howe, Alex Delvecchio, and others to power to multiple Stanley Cup championships. However, the team would soon experience a sharp decline in production that lasted for almost 20 years, where the team struggled to compete. The team was subsequently referred to as the Dead Wings. During this time, the team struggled with management issues and a lack of consistent play on the ice, which brought the morale of the city and community to an all-time low. In 1982, the team was sold to Mike Ilitch, a businessman most known for being the founder of the Little Caesars pizza chain, for $8 million. And who would be his first draft pick that his team would select? It would be none other than Steve Yzerman, who would begin a drastic turnaround for the team to help them bring them back to success again. Steve Yzerman was born in 1965 in British Columbia, Canada. When he was 9, the family moved to Nepean, Ontario, where he joined the Nepean Raiders, the local Pee-wee hockey team. A reporter for the Ottawa Sun asked his coach at the time if Yzerman's potential was evident at that early age, to which he replied, quote, "Was he a great player? I'll give you a hint. We had Dave Lowry, who's now with the Calgary Flames, playing left wing on a line with Steve Yzerman in 1978, and we finished with a 78-2 record, and we won 9 straight tournaments. We won the Ontario Pee-wee Championship because we had Steve Yzerman. We had a lot of other great players, but he was the guy that everything was built around. He was a guy who could get the job done," end quote. When he was 16 years old, he played for the Peterborough Petes of the OHL, where he amassed 91 points in 56 games in his second year. While this may not be the mind-blowing numbers compared to a lot of the other great hockey players who have played in Canadian hockey leagues, it was impressive considering that the Pete's coach, Dick Todd, was a firm believer in a team-first mentality, where players share the scoring load with each other, which limited his production statistically. However, when the 1983 NHL draft came around, Yzerman was still considered one of the top prospects available, alongside Pat LaFontaine and Sylvain Turgeon. Going into the 1983 draft, the Red Wings had understandably gone through a lot of significant change, with the changing of ownership, the renewed sense of urgency to turn the team around, and a huge decision on their hands of who to select as their next star-caliber player to lead the team in the draft. Mike Ilitch, the new owner, appointed GM Jim Devellano with the task of researching and selecting what player to draft, and initially, he had his eyes set on Pat LaFontaine as his perfect choice. This was due to the fact that he had played his youth hockey in the Detroit area, and he was considered the best choice to bring excitement to the team. However, LaFontaine was selected third in the draft, one ahead of the Red Wings, so the team settled, so to speak, on Yzerman to be their next star player of the team. As you can imagine, the pressure was pretty high for both Yzerman and the team to turn things around from the get-go. A tall task to ask for an 18-year-old kid who's just coming into the league, but Yzerman, to his credit, was ready to do his part. In his rookie year, he set the team record for goals by a rookie with 39 and points with 87, finishing second place for the Calder Trophy for Rookie of the Year behind Tom Barrasso. He also made the All-Star team, becoming the youngest player to do so, a record that would stand for almost 30 years before it was broken. In 1986, a significant development occurred for both Yzerman and the Red Wings organization, when the Red Wings captain Danny Gare was traded, leaving the team with a decision to make for a new captain going forward. The coach of the Red Wings, Jacques Demers, wanted a captain who would represent the team in all aspects, and Yzerman was chosen, becoming the youngest captain in team history at only 21 years old. The very next season after this decision, Yzerman helped lead the team to their first divisional title in almost a quarter of a century, recording over 100 points and leading the team to the Western Conference Finals, where they would fall short of a deeper playoff run. The following year would end similarly, as Yzerman lifted the team with great statistics and a number 1 seed, but ultimately fell short of expectations, losing to the Edmonton Oilers in the conference finals for the second year in a row. In the 1988-89 season, Yzerman would record his best statistical season as he amassed 65 goals and 90 assists for a 155-point season. Yzerman would become only the 5th player in NHL history to record a season of over 150 points. Although Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux scored a higher point total that season, Yzerman was rewarded with the Lester B. Pearson Trophy for MVP as voted by the players for his effort. Though he experienced a great deal of success on the season, the team did not, as they were defeated in the first round of the playoffs, again ending a season of high hopes with a loss. This trend would continue for the next few years, until another turning point in Yzerman's career occurred in 1993. Up until this point in his career, Yzerman had indeed shown that he was capable of putting up great point totals and leading the team with an offensive charge. However, an individual would be introduced into his life that would help take the team, as well as his overall game, to the next level. In 1993, Scotty Bowman was introduced as the new head coach of the Detroit Red Wings, a coach who had already experienced a great deal of success in the league. He had already won the Stanley Cup championship 6 times in his career, 5 times with the Montreal Canadiens dynasty in the 70s, and once with the upstart Pittsburgh Penguins 2 years prior, led by Mario Lemieux. At the beginning of his tenure, it was reported that Yzerman struggled to adapt to Bowman's coaching style, as he was trying to get Yzerman to become a better defender, as he had traditionally expected his forwards to also help out on defense. Tensions became so high at one point that there was a rumor that the Red Wings were contemplating trading Yzerman to relieve the situation. But thankfully for both sides, Yzerman accepted the constructive criticism and took it to heart personally, allowing him to become one of the most versatile two-way forwards in the game for the rest of his career. Under Bowman's leadership, the team would continue to experience success in the regular season, followed by early exits in the postseason, until the 1995 campaign. The team finally reached the Stanley Cup Finals, facing off against a formidable New Jersey Devils team. However, the Devils would stifle Yzerman and the Red Wings offense, and subsequently swept them in 4 games. It wasn't until the 1997 season that the Red Wings would finally prevail, capturing their first Stanley Cup championship in over 40 years by defeating the Philadelphia Flyers, which also made a statement to the world that Yzerman could in fact take a team to get their ultimate goal. Though it took him 11 seasons to do so, the team had finally reached their potential, and the good times would continue the following season as they again prevailed in the Stanley Cup Finals, defeating the Washington Capitals in a sweep for back-to-back championships. In the 2002 playoffs, one of the most famous Yzerman determination stories occurred, when the Red Wings captain played on a severely damaged right knee and yet still racked up 23 points in 23 games to capture the third Stanley Cup of his career. The injury was so bad that Yzerman needed knee realignment surgery in the offseason and couldn't play until February of the next year. Despite that severe injury, Yzerman would lead the team to his third and final championship, defeating the Carolina Hurricanes. After the game, Scotty Bowman would announce his retirement from coaching, bringing the end to an era of greatness for the team to rest. In the next few seasons, Yzerman would experience a great deal of turmoil, dealing with nagging injuries and some unlucky bounces of the puck. After coming back to only play in 16 games in the 2002-2003 season, Yzerman would experience another major injury when he was struck in the eye by a tipped puck, breaking his orbital bone and scratching his cornea. As a result of the incident, Yzerman was forced to have surgery on his eye, forcing him to miss the remainder of the playoffs. Yzerman would return in the 2005 season and lead the Red Wings to a President's Trophy, which is awarded to the team with the best regular season record, although the team shockingly was defeated in the first round by a middling Edmonton Oilers team, and as a result, many thought that this would bring about Yzerman's retirement. In July of that year, Yzerman would confirm that he was stepping away from his playing career, bringing a historic career to an end. In all, Yzerman finished with 692 goals and 1,063 assists, for a point total of 1,755 points, which is currently ranked number 7 all-time. He currently holds the record for the longest-serving captain of a single team, spending 19 seasons, 20 years, and over 1,300 games as the captain of the Detroit Red Wings. In January of 2007, the Red Wings officially retired his number 19 jersey, with the team adding a C to the corner of his banner, which was a tribute to his long-standing nickname, the Captain. He was also added to the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2009, forever cementing his legacy on the game. Although he was a successful player, he also was given the opportunity to serve in the front office, experiencing a great deal of success in that arena as well. In 2006, Yzerman was named as the team VP of the Red Wings, which he continued in until 2010, when he shocked the sports world by moving to the Tampa Bay Lightning to be their new GM. The very next year, after a multitude of important off-season moves, the Lightning reached the Eastern Conference Finals. This a year removed from missing the playoffs entirely, which resulted in Yzerman being nominated for the NHL General Manager of the Year award. The team would continue to grow in success, experiencing some of their greatest statistical seasons in wins and playoff consistency in their history from 2015 to 2018 under Yzerman's leadership, reaching the Eastern Conference Finals or better in 3 out of the 4 years. Yzerman again shocked the sports world this past postseason, deciding to forego his storied managerial career with Tampa Bay to return to the Detroit Red Wings, except this time as the general manager of the team, where he currently resides. Now we all know that Yzerman was a great player, and know of stories about his playing career, but for a player's perspective, let's turn to Sean Avery, who was a rookie on the 2001 team. He was recently interviewed on a podcast about what it was like to play with Yzerman, and he shared this humorous story. He said, quote, "He's the greatest. He's the coolest. You want to know the best Stevie Y story in history? We were at the Forge in Miami. We were standing at the bar waiting for our table, and the hottest girl I had ever seen at that point, I was 22 at the time, and I hadn't lived in America that long, but she was the hottest girl I'd ever seen. She walked up to him, sort of whispered something in his ear, and I could hear him because I always tried to stay as close to him as I could without making him feel weird. He said very classy, had his Prada suit on with a Prada stretch dress shirt that he always wore, just impeccable, said to her, "I appreciate the offer, but you're not worth $42 million. I was like, what does he mean, $42 million? I guess $42 million was half of what he was worth at that point. I didn't understand divorce and how that stuff worked. That guy was just... everything he did was so above level. He was the most sarcastic, dry, cutthroat guy. If he didn't like you, you were dead. You literally had, like, hours on Earth. Steve Yzerman, man, he was so good. By the way, that playoffs that year, he was playing on one knee. Literally, that's not a joke. He was on one knee. That was one of the greatest playoff runs I've ever seen from a single player. He took that team on his back and he won that cup. They would never have sniffed the second round without Steve Yzerman. He was so freaking good. I have goosebumps right now thinking of how good of a player he was." End quote. As I was researching for this topic, I came across a beautiful story that involves Steve Yzerman making a difference, except it was off the ice, and involved a young girl named Emily. Emily was a young girl who loved Yzerman and the Red Wings. She knew everything there was to know about the team, watched every game, and wore a number 19 Yzerman jersey everywhere that she went. Unfortunately, Emily had been in a long battle with cancer, and when the Detroit Red Wings organization found out about her and her love for Yzerman, they immediately arranged for Yzerman not just to send her a postcard or lip service, but he personally called her, not just once, but consistently, for several months, continually checking in to see how she was feeling and how her battle with cancer was going. During the playoff run in 2002, Emily's battle with cancer took a turn for the worst, and she lost a lot of strength. Although the Red Wings had their hands full with their pursuit of the cup, Yzerman personally invited Emily and one of her friends to attend one of their playoff games in his personal seats behind one of the goals. They cheered on the team to a 3-2 triple overtime win in Detroit. After the game, the Red Wings invited them to the locker room where Yzerman came out and spoke with Emily for a few minutes, earnestly encouraging her to keep fighting and encouraging her in her battle. Although Emily would soon pass away due to her illness, the story is a beautiful picture of how an athlete can use their platform to make a difference. Yzerman was one of the most popular hockey figures in the world, in the middle of an important stretch in his career, yet he took the time out to make sure that he could bring joy to a little fan who was going through a time where there was no joy, and bring a little light to her family, friends, and community as a result. As a new segment on the podcast, we asked you, the fans, to chime in with some of your favorite memories of Steve Yzerman, and I'm excited to share a few of the ones that were shared. TK France says that his favorite memory is from the 1996 playoffs, when Yzerman scored one of the most iconic goals in recent history. With the series tied 3-3 in a winner-take-all game against the St. Louis Blues, the game went into double overtime when Steve Yzerman stole the puck from hockey legend Wayne Gretzky and ripped a slap shot from the blue line past the goalie for the dramatic series-clinching win. Though the team would eventually lose in the playoffs, the dramatic goal would live on in the memories of the fans, media, and the Red Wings lore as one of the best goals of his career. The other memory comes from Zach Troutman, who shared a funny story from interacting with Yzerman. Our dad would often go down to Joe Louis Arena to watch the team practice on his lunch breaks, and he brought Zach, who was little at the time, to watch with him as well. He had Zach up on his shoulders, and Yzerman came out onto the ice with a big bag of pucks and started shooting slap shots at the net. One of the pucks took an unfortunate bounce off the crossbar and shot up into the stands where the two were standing and nearly hit Zach. Yzerman started screaming from the ice to make sure that the two were okay, and our dad took the puck down to the ice and after chit-chatting for a while joked by saying, "Well, since you almost killed my kid, the least you can do is sign this puck for him." Yzerman in turn laughed and signed the puck Sorry I almost killed you, Steve Yzerman. Thank you for the submissions to both TK and Zach, and we look forward to future submissions as well. It's hard to quantify just how much of an impact a player has to their team, as players continually come and go in the professional world of sports. But it's obvious that Steve Yzerman did wonders for a Detroit Red Wings team that was in need of a dramatic reversal of fortunes in the early 80s. Though he has been retired for longer than a decade, he is still highly regarded in Detroit and the surrounding area as an icon, and deservedly so for bringing relevancy, passion, and championships back to Hockeytown. Usually quiet, always humble, but never lacking in drive, Yzerman battled through all of the ups and downs that come with a legendary career, facing soul-crushing losses, along with the ultimate high of celebrating a championship for a team that hadn't experienced it in over 40 years. And although the Red Wings may never possess another player like him, he set the stage for the team to continue their run of championships in the late 2000s, and is hoping to do what he did 30 years ago and help turn the team around today, except this time as the GM of the team. Love him or hate him, we can all agree that what Yzerman did for the game of hockey is nothing short of a legendary performance. Thank you for listening to the Walking with Legends podcast. Your support means a lot to us, and we'd appreciate it if you'd share the podcast with your friends, or leave us a review or rating on our numerous mediums like iTunes, Podomatic, YouTube, Spotify, or Google Podcasts. If you want to get in touch with the podcast to share any ideas for future episodes, or just want a shout out, feel free to email us at walkwithlegends@gmail.com. Tune in next week as I sit down with Thomas Olds from the Kalamazoo Growlers baseball team to discuss his experiences working in and helping to run a minor league baseball team. Until next time, have a legendary week.